High-level Chinese diplomat Yang Jiechi is in South Korea for 2 days this week. Korean officials say they will discuss their pandemic cooperation, North Korea, and a potential visit from Chinese leader Xi Jinping.
Yang is visiting southern port city Busan. He's hosted by South Korea's National Security Advisor Seo-hoon. Yang is a member of the Politburo and is head of foreign affairs for the Chinese Communist Party. We spoke to Tae Woo, a military science professor at Konyang University, about what the visit means. Kim believes that for China, one of its main objectives is to put pressure on Seoul to strongly state its allegiance to Beijing and move away from the U.S. With tensions escalating between the U.S. and China, this puts South Korea in a difficult position. If the U.S. and China weren't in the midst of a fight for power and had a collaborative relationship, we wouldn't find ourselves in this dilemma. But they're doing a zero-sum game. If we partner with one, our relationship with the other will suffer. This situation calls for Seoul to make a strategic decision. South Korea relies heavily on China for trade. In June, Seoul exported $39 billion worth of goods. $11 billion of that was to China. On the other hand, Korea's strong historic military alliance with the U.S. provides stability and security for the country. Kim advises Seoul to take what he calls an alliance plus hedging strategy, where the country definitively solidifies its alliance with the U.S. while also seeking to maintain a minimal relationship with China. We must tell China, we do not want to fight. We want to maintain a friendly relationship, but militaristically, politically, we cannot follow your agenda. We must clearly separate ourselves from that. To the U.S., he suggests Korea says, ideologically, militarily, politically, we value our alliance and will follow your lead. But given that China is our neighbor, the U.S. must understand there will be some economic and cultural exchange. This is Yang's second visit to South Korea following a private meeting in 2018.
Tainted peaches could be the cause of Salmonella outbreak in 9 states. More than 60 people were sickened from the bad fruit. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is investigating the incident. The bagged peaches were reportedly sold under the Wawona brand name at Aldi stores in 16 states starting in June. The grocery store chain has recalled the peaches in the states affected. The FDA is urging anyone who bought the peaches to throw them out. Estee Lauder is feeling the effects of the pandemic. The cosmetic giant announced major changes, including up to 2,000 layoffs. At least 10% of Estee Lauder stores will be closing. Company officials say the pandemic has affected the bottom line. It announced a 2-year plan to adjust its investments. They'll also focus on digital capabilities, advertising, and promotions. Several retail stores have called it quits in New York City, but they've kept their doors open in other states or areas where business isn't so bad amid the pandemic. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that.
New York City is slowly loosening up its tight social distancing measures, a hopeful sign for store owners. But retail chains like Kate Spade, JCPenney, and restaurants have yet to open up some of their locations in the city. Some, like JCPenney's store in Manhattan, are permanently closed. John Boyd Jr. of the Boyd Company, a business location consulting firm, says in Manhattan the revenue stream has stopped.
You have vacant office buildings. You have no tourism into the city. So the revenue streams that retail and hospitality and restaurants depend upon, all of that has been turned off.
The chief executive of ARC Restaurants told the New York Times that he's only opened 2 of his 5 Manhattan restaurants. Meanwhile, in Florida, he's serving about the same number of guests as he did before the pandemic, thanks to outdoor seating on his parking lots. He says he'll never open another restaurant in the city. Boyd says there's been a dramatic outmigration of wealth and business people from New York to low-tax states like Florida and the Carolinas.
Clearly, the COVID-19 epidemic is accelerating that trend. You have many wealthy New Yorkers staying in the Hamptons or staying in their second homes in Florida and contemplating never coming back until there's a real turnaround in the city with respect to more law and order and a fiscal climate that doesn't threaten new tax increases.
Boyd says he thinks a vaccine for the virus would be a real game changer in New York's economic recovery. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
Now to our Renaissance series. A museum in France houses masterpieces built by a rare group of craftsmen with an ancient past. Following tradition, these makers aim for the highest achievements in their work. Our France correspondent David Vives has the story. Without our modern tools, Middle Ages and Renaissance builders managed to create extraordinary structures. These cathedrals and castles are testimonies to master craftsmanship at a time when no electricity existed. Who built these cathedrals and how? In the French city of Tours, one museum holds the secret. Here lies the handiwork of Companions. Companions is a society of craftspeople and artisans that follows strict rules in order to allow their arts and trades to reach the highest achievements in craftsmanship.
Before the 17th century, there was traditional mentoring for craftsmen. Different craftsmen such as woodworkers, carpenters, architects, all formed different groups. There was this idea of being excellent at your work and transmitting your knowledge to an apprentice.
The traditional network of mentors and masters dates back to medieval times. Following this tradition, an apprentice following companionship rules must travel across France and gain teachings from other companions. After several years, an apprentice creates a masterpiece as an exam to become companion. This has to be a work of art reflecting the many challenges he faces in his chosen craft. Cabinet maker Jean-Philippe Cubier created his own masterpiece. Cubier works as an antique art restorer. He said when a client contacts him, he uses a ruler or measuring tape. But for his masterpiece, he used the same techniques used by Renaissance masters, who did not use modern measuring devices. Their technique was based on divine proportion.
I only use my ancestors' knowledge, who was getting the appropriate ratio from divine proportions. Everything needs to be harmonious.
His masterpiece follows a geometry, with pieces reflecting Platonic solids. Cubes, pyramids, dodecahedrons, they all represent the four elements of ancient physics.
Our ancestors used a circle as a basis for all geometric figures. Everything that is contained in a circle is harmonious. Even this very little pyramid here is in the perfect ratio. We can't forget what our roots are. Cathedrals, churches, and other buildings used to be built using this harmonious ratio.
The search for harmony and perfection is an important aspect of a companion's life. According to Tae, becoming one also implies personal growth and a sense of responsibility.
Being a compagnon means following moral rules that you apply to yourself and in a certain way to others. We consider that our work means we have a duty towards ourselves as well as towards our families and the society.
Here says following traditions gives guidance for how to achieve in both work and life. Reporting by David Vives, NTD News.